Welcome back everyone to the second round of Kart Madness. Now what this is, it's a double elimination style tournament being organized by Jack the Dark Blue Yoshi, and all of the teams competing in it are content creators. So all of the familiar faces and friends that you know from YouTube are duking it out. But look, it's not all about the competition. This is about having fun as well. So while the analysis that I provide will contain textures of competitive tips that you can take to improve your own understanding and abilities in multiplayer. At the end of the day, folks, we're just having fun, and that will be on display here, that much is for sure. If multiplayer tips and tricks is your thing, leave a like on this video. That lets me know that you would like to see more content of this kind, as well as subscribing to the channel to stay tuned with all of the latest detailed information on Mario Kart Tour, the game that we all know and love. The rules for the races are as follows. It's going to be two teams with friendly fire off, which will significantly alter the utilization of our items as we proceed through these races. The speed is going to be set to 150 cc, and we're going to be using default item slots. So that is the context with which we enter these races. So the teams today, I'll be running with Philish and Bolt, and we're welcoming in Hilton, who's quite the competitive player. We'll be seeing him throughout the tournament, a little bit of foreshadowing for what's to come. And of course, our opponent today will be none other than Frenzy Fans. So we've gotten to know Frenzy Fans quite well through appearances on StudFit's Kart Talk series. Him and Frenzy Fangirl, wonderful couple in this game, and I can imagine that this type of setting for them in playing in a tournament where they're both able to be in the same room is pretty neat and could potentially offer advantages in terms of sharing strategy and whatnot. So here we go. Interesting thing here is that on my selection for the kart on this track, I was mistaken on which version we were playing, so I went with the mini turbo kart. On most trick tracks, you would want to go with a jump boost plus kart, so it's not going to be a significant disadvantage there, but just a little bit of an oversight as we start this race. So naturally, we want to take the inside line on all of these tracks, and that involves avoiding some of the lines that we may be taking in single player mode, such as what will generate more actions. In this case, we're just looking for the shortest circuit through. So here we can see I used the shroom to take the shortcut to the dash panel, and up here I'm going to take another shortcut through there, and we can see a top three run going on right now between Philish, Hilton, and myself. I'm going to be holding on to these defensive items. Now, this is one thing I want to emphasize here, is that I don't release the mini turbo in midair, and that is optimal. It's important to air boost, because as we're falling, we're not proceeding forward through the circuit with a maximum speed, and if you release your mini turbo there, you'll proceed quicker. So the analogy I always like to use for that is when everyone else slows down, we speed up. That's how we can find these little micro advantages in multiplayer to ensure that you have every edge over the competition. Now this is a situation here where one of the Frenzy Fan squad uses the double shroom shortcut. So I forward spam both the triple bananas. It was a mistake actually to forward spam the bob-omb as well, because one of the trailing teammates could have had a red shell, and then I would have lost further position. Of course, in this team multiplayer setting, it's not about coming in first place, it's about supporting your teammates. So before we saw I was holding on to defensive items to protect the top two members of my team, and in that case there, as they had already crossed the finish line, I had failed to protect myself, which it didn't end up mattering in that specific situation, but to improve our ability in any kind of game, particularly from a competitive mindset, we can't be results oriented, right? It has to be about the method of things. So my method could have been improved there, that much is for sure. So on this one thing that's worth noting that Bolt had shared with me, since Bolt is going to be remaining in the back of the pack for shock control, which is to try to roll lightning and then hold on to it for the optimal time to use it so that we can all charge forward, right? And what he had said to me in the first race, no one was bagging in order to compete for those lightning items in the 8th spot. So, but they did change their strategy as the races proceeded. So, interesting thing here, there is a really cool technique, a shortcut in Mushroom Gorge. I'm going to pause that in the second lap because I get a really good bird's eye view of what is going on there. We'll take a look at how to do that and I'll share it with you here. So in this situation here, I released the mini turbo accidentally. Again, you want to be releasing that on the air boost after the forward fan. That's the way to get the maximum distance. So here I have a shroom and I'm going to hold on to that for the shortcut, but I have to release it before the item box. So it's going to be kind of like a shortcut. I'm not going to get the maximum angle for that. So if we pause it right here, we can see that Philish is taking a very sharp angle to the side of this jumping ramp, okay? And the purpose of that is to fall below the stage of the racing track. And if you execute that maneuver 3 times, the first 2 times it will respawn you behind the jump ramp and you'll have to go forward and do it again. By doing that 3 times, it will actually spawn you all the way forward, so you'll bypass both gliding sections. It's an enormous shortcut. As we roll the footage here, you'll see where both Philish and Hilton end up, both ahead of me. And of course, I was in front of Hilton before, so it is quite the neat little shortcut, I must say so myself. And here we can see that I used the shroom in midair. That is optimal. That's what you want to do. And then I failed to release the second shroom. We're going to talk about shroom strategy in the upcoming races because it is very relevant. And this is an area where you can really enhance your win rate in multiplayer by executing the optimal times to use your shrooms. But we can see here, 1st, 2nd, 4th, and 7th, not quite as strong as in the first race, but we're still maintaining that lead, which is what's important. In the team game, a little bit of cushion can provide maneuverability in some of these later races. Now, this is a course where we'll see that I make fewer mistakes. This is a concourse Waluigi pinball. And I'm going to show a difference in the kind of skill that I have on this course as opposed to a lot of the other ones, which I am admittedly inexperienced in, especially when comparing to my very competitive and very skilled teammates in that regard. So I love this track, Waluigi Pinball. So everybody's clustered together initially right after that tunnel, pick up the slipstream boost, and then it's just finding ways to mini turbo. Along the tightest little line, you basically just snake your way along this tunnel here. So what I did was I had dropped the banana, and I wanted to do that because Philish and I were on pretty much the exact same line and I didn't want it to get swiped off. I wanted it to be placed down so that one of the opposition could potentially run into it there. So this is all very good. You know, you kind of want to have an eye for where those pinballs are at and to slip through that. So here we go, this is looking really good. Ultra Mini Turbo. Now this is a difference in terms of a team game compared to what I'm used to playing, which is worldwide multiplayer. I would drop the banana at the tunnel right there. So what I do there is I still drop the banana before the item box. I should have thrown it forward on the odd chance that Philish was taking a wider line. Fortunately, he wasn't, so it wasn't a detrimental play there. But what I was trying to do was re-roll for a mushroom or a super horn to guard against a blue shell, which we'll see is very relevant coming up here. So we're just snaking along the tunnel there. And there's the blue shell. So there goes my chance of finishing in first with DK Jr. on Waluigi Pinball, but it's okay because Philish was right there to clean up the mess, and I'm still going to come in second place there. So still a really good result for the team. We can see that the only reason why I was trying to re-roll for items is because I did have that support from Philish at that specific point in the race. You wouldn't want to be using your defensive items that are really at a premium. They mean so much in a situation where the opposition can be right there to fire red shells forward. So that's the situation there. First, second, fourth, and seventh once again for the team. So we have a good lead going into the Yoshi circuit track. Now this is one, absolutely folks, you want to have a mushroom glider for this one since it has a very significant shortcut, and that's through the Piranha cutout boards. Use your shroom through that and it bypasses a significant part of the track. So and this is actually perfect starting position too, since I'm in that 6th place spot. And we pick up the shroom. So, but a lot of folks have picked up the shroom because they also have the mushroom glider. So, is often the case if you're in a situation where you're playing in just a standard worldwide lobby. Many players might not be in the know on doing that, so the advantage is much more apparent when you're doing it in worldwide races as opposed to in a more competitive lobby. So right here, this is the kind of thing that separates good players from great players, is how Philish and Hilton hopped through the grass section off-road, picking up a very significant lead in this one. And that's something where my skill level is not on that level, right? And but what you do want to do, I'll focus on it as we go into the second lap. As well as talking about that mushroom strategy, we could see that I burnt the double mushrooms, and it worked out in this situation because I ended up pulling another mushroom ahead of the shortcut. But that's not a guarantee, and I'll juxtapose this situation against the one that we'll see in the final race, and then I'll have my conclusion on what I think is the optimal play to do in such situations. So here we can see that we don't want to go for that jump boost over there, right? You want to take the mini turbo through the tightest line in that situation. So here, Bolt ends up saving us. This was a precarious race. It was really an ugly race. I had accidentally forward spammed triple bananas and I had hit Philish, but Bolt really came through for us, cleaned it up, all the messes, many of which were myself to blame for those. So we pick up first, third, fourth, and fifth. Bolt had done a tremendous job through this. He said that originally they weren't bagging, and then they switched who was doing the bag, and then eventually they gave up entirely, I guess, because they realized that Bolt had it so strongly secured in that 8th spot. It's just better for the 4 of them to run in that situation. So kind of an interesting little context to read into how your opponents are playing while you're going through these sets as well. Now, to talk about the shrooms here, when you use a shroom, you're going to get 100% of the duration of that, right? And if you wait for it to fully complete, on the second shroom, you'll also get 100% of the duration of that. Now, what happens in the game's mechanics is that if you use the second shroom while the duration has not yet completed on that first shroom, like let's say if only 90% or even 99% of the duration of that first shroom has not yet completed, you'll only get up to 150% duration for the two of them combined, okay? So the only time that you really want to burn both of your shrooms together is if you're trying to re-roll for a new item box. Otherwise, it's ideal in situations like that to use your shrooms separately, and that's particularly relevant, folks, when going through double shroom shortcuts like the kind that exist on SNES Mario Circuit, okay, where if you don't separate them, you're going to have reduced duration. And in fact, I believe this was relevant in the first round series where I didn't get the full 200%, 100 for each of them, and I ended up clipping some of the sand at the end of my shortcut. So there is a few frames that will occur before your cart decelerates after the first shroom if you're off-road. So timing those is essential for maximizing your shroom usage. Now, the other thing with shrooms is the probability of obtaining them, right? And this is the race where I wanted to kind of juxtapose that against the Yoshi circuit race. So we have this one secured in terms of the points, so I'm going to roll with Diddy Kong on this one. I have to go with my favorite character at least one time in the set. So maybe we'll have some banana barrel fun on this one. That would be cool. So in this situation, I get forward spam, but the mushroom actually saves me there. Only end up pulling one item though, and we can see we get a few giant bananas, which is really cool. And the way how you navigate these banana barrels, not that it's relevant necessarily for multiplayer, but just for general knowledge anyway, is that similar to a coin box, except you're not trying to go through the coins, you're trying to create alleyways, knowing that they're being shot out at different sites along your drift. And we can see I avoided them all, which is fantastic. So this is the situation here where I burn the second shroom, and I get punished for it because I rolled blooper green shell, and that prevents me from having access to either one of these two shortcuts. And now we can see that I get hit and I'm sent all the way back to last place. So what's the takeaway here? Certainly it's a risk to roll both mushrooms ahead of a shortcut that you know exists on the track. It's better to have, first of all, auto item off, and second of all, showing restraint in those situations, because yes, while you can roll another shroom like I did on the Yoshi circuit track, you can also roll a star too, and that will help you just the same way through the shortcut. The situation is that you can miss out entirely. And for the situations where you miss out entirely, not quite certain that using it early is benefit enough to compensate for the frequency of times when you miss out entirely on that. So that's the situation there. If the composition of that race is supporting it, I would recommend holding on to a shroom to guarantee that you have access to that shortcut, okay? So that's all the takeaways I have for this set. It was a really fun set of matches. Frenzy fans, guy and girl, the whole team in general, thank you so much for these good matches, and put us in a couple tricky spots, that's for sure, and really tested the resolve of the teamwork. And it's amazing through this tournament just how much I've learned about multiplayer, being someone who only has done standard races to this point. To have this experience in the team setting has not only broadened my understanding of the specific mechanics of multiplayer, but also the knowledge of item frequencies and the restraint in knowing when to use those that's really had benefit in my single standard player races that can help us in Kart Pro, Tour multiplayer challenges. So, and of course, I'm here to share all of that information with you. I do hope you enjoyed this one. If you do, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel to be on the lookout for more multiplayer content. The next set of races in this tournament is going to push us to the limit, folks. It's the most competitive set of races that I thought imaginable. It's a who's who in multiplayer. Really extraordinary to see the level that was presented here, and that's going to be against Shy Guy Kart's team. So he is a major player on YouTube, and he has a team every bit as capable as ours, and that was phenomenal, the quality there. So thank you all for tuning in, and look forward to the next one. Take care, everybody.